This lecture is about triads in second inversion. Here we have our root position C major chord. In root position we like to double the root, and double the third as a second choice. In our first inversion chord, we have the third of the chord in the bass. This creates the interval of a sixth somewhere in the chord. This is why there's a 6 in the Roman numeral figured bass. In this case, it's between the E and the C. In first inversion chords, we like to double the root, and as a second choice, we can double the fifth. First inversion chords are used commonly. Now we're going to talk about second inversion chords. Second inversion chords are the ones that have the fifth in the bass. So in the case of C, it's when we have G in the bass, C over G. In the Roman numeral figured bass, we call these 6/4 chords. This is because somewhere in the chord above the G is a fourth. In this case, it's the C. Also, somewhere above the bass is a sixth, this time between the G and the E. So whenever you see a 6/4 in the Roman numeral, you know we're talking about a second inversion chord, and the fifth is in the bass. In these kind of chords, we like to double the fifth. They have a unique sound, a stark quality, and because the second inversion chord exhibits such a stark quality, composers traditionally reserve them for very intentional uses. Here we will look at the three most common uses: the passing 6/4, the auxiliary 6/4, and the cadential 6/4. First, the passing 6/4 chord. Say we want to connect our 1 chord with our 4 chord and allow our bass line to proceed melodically, stepwise. We already know how first inversion chords can make this easier. But also second inversion chords can afford us the same opportunity. Here we're using a second inversion 5 chord, allowing our bass to be more melodic as it passes through, continuing by a step in the same direction in which it was approached. Now let's voice this progression. We should start with a nice open voicing of the 1 chord, doubling the root. In moving to the 6/4, let's maintain our common tone, the G, and move the other voices to the closest chord tones. We also want to make sure to double the fifth of the second inversion chord. Moving to the 1 chord in first inversion, we keep the same things in mind: the common tone, moving stepwise, and doubling the root. Finally, in moving to the root position 4, we will maintain 1 common tone, while the other, the soprano, will leap down to the third to allow us to double the root. There are some other good things going on that I'd like to point out. For example, we've maintained doubling the root in all the chords that mandate this, while doubling the fifth in the second inversion chord. We've also kept our movement stepwise as much as possible. Also, most importantly, even though our 5 is an inverted chord, we still need to resolve the leading tone to the tonic. Something else you may have noticed between our alto and our bass is how the root and the third of our 1 chord both pass through the fifth of the 5 chord, ultimately trading places. So if you look at the bass, we see the root starting, then passing through the fifth of the 5 chord up to the third of the first inversion 1 chord. Now if you look at the alto, which starts on the third, passes down through the fifth of the 5 chord, and ends up on the root of the first inversion 1 chord. In this way, the bass and the alto are said to be trading chord tones as they move through the same tone in the middle chord. This contrary motion also helps us avoid undesirable parallels, and also just sounds good. Here's another example of a passing 6/4, this one in D major. This time, we want to connect the first inversion 4 with our 5. Do you see an opportunity to use a passing 6/4 chord anywhere in here? First, we know that the 4 often precedes the 5. But what could be used over that A? We want to save the intensity of the 5 for when we arrive there, but still have our bass move stepwise. This is where our second inversion passing 6/4 can be used. In this case, it would be a 1/6/4, a D over A. Practice time. Pause this video and take a minute to fill out the soprano, alto, and tenor voices on your own paper. Remember proper doublings. Here's how I did it. You're not necessarily wrong if you didn't do it my way, as long as you kept these important things in mind, and the other voice leading principles in mind. First, remember your doublings. You should double the root, the fifth, the root, and the root in those 4 chords respectively. It's really easy to stay mostly stepwise in this particular example. And also remember to trade those chord tones. In this case, they occur between the bass and the soprano. It's also important that you avoided the tempting parallel fifths and octaves whenever you move from 4 to 5. Now let's watch some examples of passing 6/4s in action. The next common type of second inversion chord is the auxiliary, also called the neighboring 6/4 chord. This type of 6/4 chord sees the bass stay in one place as the upper voices move to form a second inversion triad, then immediately return to the same chord. The upper voices step away and step back. As usual, the second inversion chord doubles the fifth, meaning that, assuming your first chord doubled its root, only 2 voices will move while the other 2 stay. In this case, the movement occurs between the alto and the tenor, while the soprano and the bass stay stationary. This kind of 6/4 chord is usually unaccented and occurs on a weak rhythmic position. It's to add color to an existing harmony. This is the voiced equivalent of this common keyboard movement from a root position chord to a second inversion chord and back. Let's see an example of an auxiliary 6/4 in F minor. We'll start with a stationary bass line. Start with the 1 chord, and then move to the 4 in second inversion, and then back to the 1. Look now as we voice the chords, which ones move up and move back. In this case, the bass and the alto share the root of the one chord, share the tonic, so they stay stationary, while the soprano and the tenor step up and step back. Now it's your turn. Practice writing an auxiliary 6/4 chord progression, in this example in C sharp minor. Don't forget the key signature. This is actually very simple. Keep the C sharp stationary and move the soprano and the alto stepwise. Now watch as I play some examples of ways you can use auxiliary 6/4 chords. The final type of second inversion triad we'll look at is the cadential 6/4. True to its name, we see these frequently at cadences. Spanning styles and genres, this is an interesting way to add a bold tension to the end of a phrase. It starts with a 1 in second inversion, then moves to the 5, keeping the bass in the same note, and then resolves to the 1. This is a way of strengthening the tension and resolve in a cadence. Of course, like all the other second inversion chords, it doubles the fifth. This kind of 6/4 chord usually occurs at metrically strong positions, contrary to the other types we've looked at. Take a few minutes to analyze the above example in B minor. If you feel compelled to skip this, it's probably because you're not as quick at analyzing as you should be. After analyzing, try singing through the parts to get an idea of the effect of each voice. Remember, the sharp below the third chord means that the third of the chord has been raised by a half step from what the key signature indicates. Let's take a look now. So we start with a first inversion 4 chord, then move to the 1 chord in second inversion. This would be the cadential 6/4, where it goes from 1/6/4 to 5 to 1. Now listen to it. See if you can hear the tension that is created by the cadential 6/4 before the resolution. One more practice. Pause this video and write in all the parts, Roman numerals, chord symbols, and type of second inversion chord on your own paper. One more common place you see second inversion chords is in ostinato patterns or other kinds of arpeggiated bass lines.